Appreciate that. Barry, you're next. A high standard here on that time.
Second offense, you get no time at all. My name is Bsrry, Chang. I'm running for reelections. I have accomplished a lot. I have kept my campaign promise back in 2009. We resolved the dog park issue, and we forced Lehigh to cut mercury by 90%, which I, campaign promise to for this public safety and health. And then also the approved the Apple Campus 2 project. That means $5 billion construction jobs stay in the area. And then when they're done by 2016, 12,800 R&D jobs will stay in the area. I want to run because, as you know, the traffic is getting worse and worse. I just went to the Silicon Valley Leadership Group meeting this morning. Generally, it takes 10 minutes to get to Mountain View. It took 40 minutes for me to go on local. So traffic is an issue, housing is an issue, the environmental issue still the issue. Even Lehigh agreed to cut down 90% of the mercury, still have a lot to go. Thank you.
Questions that I'm going to ask the candidates have been submitted by the community. I asked broadly for people to submit questions to me so that I can edit them down to a core set. We don't have a lot of time because we have a lot of candidates. That's a wonderful luxury. You'll have a lot of great people to choose from, but for today it makes it so we have to do sort of the lightning round here. And again, they'll only have 1 minute to answer a question. This time we'll start at the Savita end of things and work the way back this way, so nobody has to be last every time, or first, depending on what you fear. So here's your first question. Recently, probably the premier political analyst in California, and certainly he is, Larry Gersten, came and addressed our club. And we talked about the politics of California. It's kind of a different story than a few years ago where it was pretty rough, but this year he was pretty helpful, or pretty complimentary of where we are in California. But we talked about the Washington, D.C. and the problems there. And in the end, somebody in this audience asked him, what's the one thing that concerns him most about the governance of our state and nation? And he said it's civic engagement. That is, in the previous election, less than 30% of the people voted, 23% of the people here voted. And now it was a primary election, so we don't quite come out, but 23% isn't very good. In the last city council vote, we had only 9,000 people of the 58,000 people here vote. And we also need people to serve on commissions, we need people to volunteer. It's part of the strength of Cupertino. It's always been a strength, a great volunteer base has been a strength here. So the question to the candidates is, what can you do to encourage civic engagement, whether it's voting or participating in our community? We'll start with Savita. Barry.
Number one, register voter. Out of 58,000, roughly 58,000 residents in Cupertino, about 28,000 registered to vote. So if you don't register, you cannot vote. This American system is different than our democratic country and other part of the world. So register to vote. I've been registered people to vote since Tommy Sweet's time. So that was a long time ago. If you know who is Tommy Sweet, who is serving the first term Chinese American to serve on Cupertino School Board. So that was at least 10, 15 years ago. So register to vote. Number two, if you're a civic leader, listen to the constituent. I see the city council member put the item on the last, the important item, and until midnight, 2 o'clock, who is going to attend. So you really want to listen to the constituent and really sincerely listen to them. You don't have to agree, but you have to listen. Thank you.
The next question is the one that was most popularly submitted. So very interesting. It's close to my heart. It's an issue that I ran in back in last millennium and worked hard on while I was a council member. So I'm glad to see that other people remain interested in it. The question is this: how can we make Cupertino a more bicycle and pedestrian friendly community? And are you willing to spend money on it, to commit some budget to it? And what do we need from the leadership to make progress on that issue?
A couple of ways to do it. One, we can designate a certain street, make it a one-way street, and then so add it to bike lane in the same direction as the car. So that needs some work from the city engineering, traffic engineering department. And then also number 2, encourage the bike walk couple to school longer, because so far it's 1 week, and every time, every year, I kept asking, can we extend it to make it 3 weeks? Because as you know, to make it habit, you have to do it 3 weeks. If it's just 1 week, 7 days, it's not going to do it. You want to accumulate custom, make the children feel accustomed to it, so for 21 days. And then of course increase the incentive. So far we have the iPad for the kids, they do the good job on the walk bike to school. But we can increase that too. So there's many ways to do, and I also propose to have a bus around the traffic during the school hour. But BJ is not interested. But we have to continue doing it. Thank you.
The next question I think is, I think it's going to be an upcoming interesting issue for us to tackle. As you probably all know, Apple is building some large new facility in our city. And to my surprise, they've told us that they are not going to be leaving their other properties. They are in something like 23 properties around the city. Like in my neighborhood on Bub Road, they're occupying a lot of properties. So that means 12,000 new families to Cupertino. Cupertino has 23,000 families now, so an additional 12,000 families here working in Cupertino will be an interesting thing for us to absorb. And the question today is about what are we going to do about housing? Shall we put them up in the hills? We've got some great hills that have very few homes in them. Shall we do high rises? I hear some people don't want to do any more density in the downtown area. Or shall we run them up and down on 280, because 280 has no congestion, we can just have them all live somewhere in another community. But those seem to be our 3 choices for these 12,000 new families here in Cupertino. So what are we going to choose?
Since I've been on the council, this is my 5th year, so I've had a little bit of experience dealing with the developer and also the company. Like for example, Apple Campus 2 project, I did run into someone and say, why you guys approve it? Why don't you guys ask him to ask Apple to move somewhere else in the desert in Nebraska? Nebraska. I say, well, it's not what we asked them to do, because they have their choice. Company have to make a decision how they're going to compete. Okay. For example, this morning I just went to the Silicon Valley Leadership Group Game Changer. Okay, all the CEO there from the big company, bigger size, like 85,000 employee, into smaller 500 people employee company. Their question is the same. Number 1 is traffic congestion. Number 2 is housing. We got to deal with these 2 head-on. This is Silicon Valley of the world, the high-tech center of the world, and then our public transportation is embarrassing. And housing, if we don't deal with it, find a solution, we're going to jeopardize the business side segment. So we have to deal with it. Thank you.
Next question. We have this kind of is maybe a little bit linked to the previous question. We have a high concentration in one business in our city. And because of that, we have a high dependence on them. The number 1 taxpayer for us is Apple. And yet, we used to have a little bit of diversity. We used to have a little HP and a little bit of Symantec and a little this and that, but it's getting to be pretty focused. So that's a concern, and I'd ask what we could do about that. But beyond that, also related to business, we seem to be building a lot of retail space. I was at Valco last night going to the movies, but I noticed there wasn't a lot of action downstairs at Valco, and there seems to be some empty spaces on Stevens Creek Boulevard. We're building a bunch more at Main Street. So what are we going to do to fill those business locations with businesses that the people out here want? Places that they want to go shop, or things that make our tax situation not so tenuous as being dependent on one company.
Valco everybody has been talking for years, so it's time for improvement now. I know it's going on now. It's just probably within the next few years you will see some difference there. The way the operation, you see some of the area, some of the retail space was not too good, but then when they changed the different store, then the business is so good. I mean, look at the 10 Tower in Stevens Creek, that area, that small shopping strip, used to be just nobody there. So now you cannot hardly find a parking there. So it's a way of operation, and the city had to cooperate and then help with the developer, because it's not one-sided, as I said earlier. It's not what city want, and also they have to cooperate with the developer what they want, and then also what the citizen want. So it's a three-way negotiation. And on Apple, I'm glad to tell you that when we approved it, I asked them to pay more sales tax to City of Cupertino, and Apple was glad to do it. So it was a win-win solution for the city and for Apple. Thank you.
And this is a question that I think people will see as on their mind. It has to do with climate change and drought and all of that. You know, some people don't believe in climate change or don't believe we cause it or whatever. You got to believe in the drought because we're not allowed to wash our cars anymore. So the question is this: there are two ways people are approaching this now, trying to stop it, and the other one is called adaptation. It's a new planning idea where you're trying to figure out how to live with it. And my question, will start with Savita and come down this way, is what's the role of this city leadership in this new weather that we have, however it was caused?
Since the drought began, my lovely wife Sue, sitting right there, we start saving the water. We don't let the water in the kitchen just drain, down the pipe. We put in a basket and then carry out and water our plants. So we've been doing that. We have to change the behavior because the drought is coming. Unless there's more water coming, otherwise we cannot sustain the way we had before. So I'm the only candidate served on the water district, Santa Clara Valley Water District, as an advisory board for many years. I've been urging them to do the two things: water conservation and water recycling. Okay, but the movement is very slow. But we cannot rely on them. So the city, what city can do, in my opinion, is on the new building, put a two piping system, one for the drain, one for the really go to the wastewater, one you go for the recycling. So that's what the city can do. Thank you.